Hello and welcome to Payoff Pitch, Action Network's Major League Baseball betting podcast. I'm Sean Zerillo, joined today by Collin Whitchurch to help you break down a Tuesday slate in Major League Baseball. Tuesday, April 22nd, we're going to get started with some best bets and a game that Collin and I were chatting about before we jumped on the podcast. Braves and Cardinals. Pitching change here. Spencer Strider scratched yesterday from this start after injuring his hamstring throwing around before Monday's game. Braves can't seem to catch any luck this year, Collin? Jerks and Profar getting suspended for steroids. Reynaldo Lopez on the IL. Strider and Acuna starting the season on the IL. Strider came back, now back on the IL after one start. We'll see how Acuna's progression goes, but already fighting with his manager, Brian Snitker, over Jared Kelenic getting tagged out sliding into second base after staring at the ball that he thought, he looked like he was in the movie Major League. He's like, oh, I hit the ball far. I could just stand here and watch it, fly out of the park at the plate. That's my favorite part of Major League is like all the home runs they hit, they're just standing in the batter's box for the entirety of the ball flight. But with that said, big adjustment here in the line. The Cardinals were about plus 185 against Strider. Now the Braves are about minus 130 with the Cardinals closer to plus 120 for this matchup. Braves expected to use a bullpen game in place of Spencer Strider. I bet the over here, assuming Strider was going to pitch. I made this about 8.5. With Strider in the game, so I bet the over 8 minus 110. Obviously, after the pitching adjustment, the value on that is gone. I do make this closer to 9. Total sitting at 8.5, but choose to the over. So, Collin, you're going to take the Braves here on the money line in a bullpen game. Tell me what your angle is, the way you see their offense trending, because I would imagine that's a big part of it. And then your thoughts on Andre Palante, who's a guy I bet a number of unders on this season. Very high ground ball rate, but why do you think the Braves get to him tonight?
Yeah, this is an interesting angle here. Betting on a team where we don't really know who's pitching for them. But I do still see value on the Braves here, despite the fact that Spencer Strider is scratched. And like you said, it's probably going to be a bullpen game. I think we're going to see some Dylan Lee. We're going to see some Michael Peterson, sort of mix and matching here. But this is more a bet on the Braves offense than anything else. They really, really struggled to start the season. But we're starting to see them come around here a little bit more, and I think that they are primed to get to Palante here today. They've woken up. We waited a month to get there. That the Braves offense, they've scored 6+ runs in 3 of the last 4 games, and they're on a 4-game winning streak right now. This is a little bit of a bet against the Cardinals pitching staff and their bullpen. We saw the Braves offense get to Phil Maton last night. Jojo Romero also pitched in relief. Both of those guys have thrown in 2 straight now, so don't expect to see them behind Palante either. The Braves are obviously still eagerly awaiting the return of Acuna, but we've seen Austin Riley and Marcell Ozuna. They're kind of tearing the cover off the ball right now. Sean Murphy has provided a boost since his return, and Alex Verdugo has too at the top of the lineup since they brought him in. And we've seen signs of life from Michael Harris. Keep waiting for him to break out. And Matt Olson's right there as well. I think that the market hasn't yet fully adjusted to the Braves offense looking like the Braves offense. I think that they're sitting here at minus 135, despite the starting pitcher being TBD. And that's a testament to their offense. And I think we're going to see their offense break out against Palante tonight. So I see value on them for the full game here again because of the bullpen questions for St. Louis behind Palante as well.
I make the Braves about minus 137, assuming they're going to go with the bullpen game today. You can get as low as minus 130 currently. I fired on the Cardinals after the Strider announcement yesterday. Not a big bet, but I took them at plus 185, expecting the line to crash. I may free roll that ticket with a bet on the Braves at minus 130, minus 135, something like that today. Wouldn't be, a big potential win, winning about a quarter of a unit if the Cardinals do win, but taking a little bit of a hedge off of it potentially and just free rolling the ticket and enjoying the over on that matchup. My best bet for today, the Boston Red Sox at minus 124, best available number. Like them up to about minus 130. Put this in the Action Network app yesterday. Went up to minus 135, came back down to minus 125 this morning. Brian Bayo making his debut in 2025, did rehab in the minor leagues, had some shoulder soreness in spring training, never actually pitched in a game in spring, but through 4 rehab starts. Final rehab start, gave up some runs early, but struck out 4 of the final 7 batters he faced, and most encouragingly, he hit 98 miles an hour on the gun in the 5th and final inning. Also, the slider depth, the changeup depth looked drastically improved relative to last season, and that's been the big thing with Bayo. His stuff has gotten worse every year. 3 years of his major league career, stuff has gotten worse each year. His command is improved each year. So if the stuff is back a little bit on both his changeup and his slider, I think he's going to be a significantly more effective pitcher this season. Now, I shouted out this show yesterday. I'm going to say it again today. If you're a baseball fan, if you're listening to this podcast and you have not watched The Clubhouse on Netflix, what are you doing? It's better than Hard Knocks. It is right up your alley. If you are listening to this show, I am amazed at the amount of behind the scenes stuff that they showed. But one significant part of the show was Brian Bailo struggling mentally because his wife and his kid were stuck in the Dominican Republic all last year. He couldn't get visas. He spent the entire year without them. They had a very candid conversation with him and Alex Cora where they went out to right field at Fenway Park, and Bale literally had to walk away from the conversation when Alex Cora asked, like, do you miss them? Because he was so emotionally upset about it. So just remember, these guys are human beings. These are not just stats on a page. These are not guys that are regressing to career norms. Like, Brian Bale was literally struggling last year in part because his family wasn't there for him and he was depressed on a day-to-day basis. His family's here this year, and I'm expecting, a better version of him mentally, number one. But number two, looking at that actual spring training start, or not spring start, but that AAA start last time out, his slider and his changeup just looked drastically better. And he talked about that a lot on the show too, just feeling like his slider was flat and it wasn't getting the movement he wanted to. It really looked like it was back based upon the visuals in that minor league outing. Now, something to keep in mind with Bayo, in addition to the pitch movement, the stuff on the slider and the changeup, is the ground ball rate and the infield defense for the Red Sox. Last year, the left side of their infield was amongst the worst in baseball. Rafael Devers is an absolute butcher at third base. I believe he's minus 38 in defensive runs saved over the past 4 or 5 years, minus 9 last year. David Hamilton was minus 4 last year. Bregman is a slightly above average third baseman. Story was an above average shortstop. After more injuries, I think you could say Story is a league average shortstop. Christian Campbell's been slightly below average, and their catchers are significantly better. Connor Wong was a minus 14 last year, catcher. Vasquez this year plus 2. So overall, Bayo pitching, keeping the ball on the ground, but with a better defensive infield behind him this year, more confidence outside of the ballpark with his family there. And then visually, I think the stuff on the slider and the changeup are both coming back. The last point I want to mention, drastic home road splits and drastic lefty-righty splits for Bryce Miller. All Mariners pitchers in general have that home road split just because pitching at T-Mobile Park, much easier, less sight lines for hitters to get the bat on the ball. Same, there's a trade-off with the Mariners offense too, right? The Mariners offense, worse at home, a little bit better on the road. But in terms of the Red Sox being able to see Miller today, career against righties and at home, 20% strikeout minus walk rate, expected FIP between 3.3 and 3.7. On the road against lefties, that expected FIP climbs to 4.4 to 4.8. The strikeout minus walk rate falls from about 20% to 14%. So much closer to league average, much less effective for Bryce Miller against these left-handed bats of Boston and on the road at Fenway Park. That said, I still make the total about 8.5. You can bet under 9 to minus 110, but I like the Red Sox on the money line up to about minus 130. Collin, any thoughts on Boston against Seattle? And then we'll move on to our top underdogs for today.
The only thing I looked at in that game, honestly, was looking at Bayo props. One of my favorite things to do is fade out totals for debuting pitchers, and Bayo's making his season debut today, so I wanted to see if I could get a good number on there. The books are cowardly not offering any, at least as of the time we're recording, so that was a stay away from me, but that was the one angle I was looking at. And also, I'll get to some walk props later in the show. I like to look at potentially buying some walkovers for debuting pitchers as well, but Bayo's 1.5 over 1.5 was like minus 200, so I didn't see any value there. Those were the angles I was looking at. Obviously, I'm with you on the potential for his success today. I actually haven't checked out the clubhouse yet, so I'm excited to. I'm way behind on my television, but I'll be getting to that soon. But yeah. Looking at Bayo props, nothing there. If you see an outs prop pop up, after this recording, and you see something 15.5 and above, that's what I would be looking at, betting an under there, just because, again, I always just, blanket assume that pitchers, making their first start are going to have a little bit shorter leash than normal.
Yeah, 71 pitches in his final spring outing. They're not going to push him past 90 today, maybe 85, maybe 80. They're not going to push Bayo too aggressively. They gave this guy a pretty reasonably sized contract last year. I think they gave him $70 million just in his third season, bought out a couple arbitration years. So going to handle him with care, especially coming off of the shoulder injury in spring training. And they'll let him continue to ramp up. But yeah, expect about 80, 85, 90 pitches for Bayo today. Under 14 and a half outs would seem like a decent bet. Both of these teams coming off of an off day with well-rested bullpens, another angle and another reason why I like the under in this matchup. Let's move on to our favorite underdogs for this slate. I had difficulty finding one to actually put my money down on. I had a couple yesterday that we got CLV on both lines. Unfortunately, lost both money lines. Today, the one in range, the one that's close to in range, the White Sox plus 210, I would bet down to plus 200. Not super interested. But I do think the Twins are still like absolutely just going through it and playing a White Sox team that is hungry for wins. This could be a good spot to bet Chicago. Plus 200 or better would be a value bet for me. Not overly interested in betting it. The other one that's close to being in range is the Mets. I want plus 120 or better against the Phillies. It's currently a plus 115, plus 116. It's been sitting there since last night. If this market moves up at all towards the Mets or away from the Mets, makes them plus 120, I would consider buying in on New York at that price. Collin, you're going with the first 5 underdog money line after Max Meyer struck out 14 hitters yesterday. Going to run it back with the Marlins in the first half. Tell me why you like them today.
Yeah, this is Edward Cabrera, continues to be pretty much exactly the pitcher we expect him to be, which is someone with really good stuff. You just have no idea where the ball is going. A lot of walks, a lot of strikeouts. But in a small sample size in his 2 starts so far this year, he's actually getting more out-of-zone chases than he has ever before in his career. He's up to 35.2% out-of-zone chase rate. His career rate entering this year, 29.9, so it's more than a 5% jump. Particularly impressive against a Reds team that, they struggle to lay off pitches. They're a swing-happy team. A lot of talented offensive players there, but a lot of guys who like to swing the bat. We saw it last night against Max Meyer. Max Meyer was phenomenal. I actually had over 1.5 walks on Meyer last night. That ended up being an absolutely terrible bet. Should have laddered his strikeouts like a few people I know did. Cabrera's strikeout total tonight, for what it's worth, is 5.5, and the over is sitting at a plus money in the 100 to 105 range. Something that I'm considering. Haven't quite pulled the trigger on it there yet. Seems kind of like you're buying into the juice there a little bit, because they're obviously going to amp up the strikeout numbers after Meyer strikes out 14 last night. But yeah, Marlins first 5, particularly this is the Cabrera versus Nick Martinez bet. And again, like you, I kind of struggled to find a really live underdog today. Marlins first 5 is just plus 105, so nothing super exciting there. But the Marlins offense actually hasn't been as terrible as a lot of people thought they would be entering the season. They're exactly league average by Fangraphs WRC plus 100. Xavier Edwards has been a menace at the top of the order. Really big Xavier Edwards fan. Matt Mervis has 6 home runs randomly. Power bat in the middle of the lineup. And they also just got Connor Norby back from injury. He's probably their best returning hitter. Kind of an underrated guy there, Connor Norby. So I like Miami's offense this year a little bit more than I expected to a month ago, probably. And you wouldn't believe it when you look at just like the names in the lineup, but this offense has actually been better than the Reds offense so far through the first month of the season, at least if you're judging by weighted runs created plus. Like I said, Miami's is exactly league average, and the Reds are about 2% below league average, 98 WRC plus. Against right-handed pitching, granted, they're both facing right-handed pitching today, and that evens things out a little bit. The Reds are about 4% above. The Marlins are about 4% below. But I'm definitely selling Nick Martinez here. I think that Edward Cabrera has a profile that Cincinnati's offense will likely struggle against, unless they show a significant amount of patience, more patience than they generally show. I think that Cabrera should have a solid day today. And again, Miami's offense, a little bit underrated here against a below-average pitcher in Nick Martinez. So I like the Marlins here at plus 105. Probably wouldn't bet him past that. That's probably my cutoff point. plus 105, plus 104 range. Again, just first 5 here for Miami.
Miami also called up Agustin Ramirez this week, their top prospect acquired in the Jazz Chisholm trade. I'm really high on Ramirez in general. This guy looks like JT Realmuto 2.0. He has 2020 upside going forward. Some projection systems, some forecasters think he can go 15-15 the rest of the way. And if that is the case, this guy is a serious threat for National League Rookie of the Year. If you're talking about 15 homers, 15 steals, and then getting the catcher positional adjustment on top of that, the rest of the way, do not sleep on Agustin Ramirez. I believe I gave him out at 40-1 in the preseason. Going to play significant time the rest of the way for Miami. Projections only have him getting about 200 plate appearances. I think you can double that the rest of the way. And in those plate appearances, they have him going 8 homers, 5 steals. So, I mean, you can't just sit here and say double every projection, but they literally have him playing 57 games the rest of the way. I think he plays 100. And if he plays 100, he's going to get 15 homers. He's going to get over 10 steals. Plus the catcher positional adjustment, Agustin Ramirez, not a guy you should overlook in NL Rookie of the Year markets.
Also, if he's good...
sorry. Go ahead, Collin.
Yeah, also, if he's good defensively, he's going to climb up the WAR leaderboards. And for a lot of those voters who are just kind of blindly sorting by WAR, he's going to be up there. If his offense is above average, his defense is above average. The positional adjustment, like you talked about, you'll see him up there near the top, pretty much all of those leaderboards, which will help him significantly in the voting, especially playing in a market like Miami, where a lot of these voters probably aren't going to be watching a whole lot of him. Then the end of the year gets there and they're like, all right, let's look at the rookie leaderboard. Oh, Agustin Ramirez is at the top of all of them. All right, let's vote for him.
Yeah, it was kind of like Austin Wells last year. Austin Wells just slowly creeped up towards the AL WAR leaderboard at the end of the year. And it was like, is Austin Wells going to be the favorite for AL Rookie of the Year? And it really came down to him and Kowser and Luis Gil all being at the same level. And frankly, if Paul Skeens was not there last year and people were already voting for a pitcher, I don't know if Luis Gil would have ultimately won the award. I think we just kind of had a year of the rookie pitcher last year and voters trended that direction. But
I'm still mourning my Austin Wells ticket.
With shallower minor leagues in general, like the Rookie of the Year races just seem wide open this year. We've even seen some surprise call-ups, or I don't know if they were necessarily surprise call-ups, but aggressive call-ups. Luke Keyshaw for the Twins was just kind of like, oh man, you got him to the majors real quick. Like, it seems like there's a number of these guys who are progressing through the minors a little bit more quickly just because there's less depth at the top of the minors. You found
Caleb Durbin for the Brewers. Nick Kurtz, we just saw get the call-up for the Athletics. We should see him... Yeah, there are a lot of guys there. Edgar Caro just got the call up for the White Sox as well. Another catcher, but he doesn't quite have as much defensive upside to make a dent in the Rookie of the Year race. But he's gonna big time. He's got huge contact ability. We saw it against Boston this past weekend. Very, very interesting races. Not a lot of obvious favorites at this point. Obviously, in the NL, we'll be looking at Roki Sasaki, depending on how he progresses. But yeah, in general, there's a lot of uncertainty, and that makes it a lot fun. And hopefully, we can take advantage of it in the betting market.
Yeah, Cruz and Dominguez starting to play a little bit better in the NL and the AL, respectively. But I do think these races are fairly wide open at this point. Let's talk about the Mets and Phillies today. Probably the game of the day. We both have a bet on this matchup, which is why we're turning our attention here. I'm on the under 8. I like this down to about 7.5 at even money. Awful loss last night. I know Soto had the barely missed 3-run homer earlier in the game, but to get it to 2-0 in the 7th, 5-0 in the 9th, or 5-1 in the 9th, no 5-0, and then have Kranick going for his 3rd inning, allow a few base runners, and then Edwin Diaz comes in and gives up the meaningless 3-run jack in the 9th inning to go from under 8 to landing on 9. Had an awful one over the weekend, too, in Seattle, or in Toronto, Seattle versus Toronto. Under 8.5, I believe. Went to extras, 3-3 through 10, 3-3 through 11. Grand slam in the top of the 12th. Like, these bullpens have been either very good or very bad this year. And that tends to change from one inning to the next in the same game. So it's been brutal trying to cash these unders late. But back on the under today. Christopher Sanchez, Griffin Canning, both going to keep the ball on the ground. Sanchez has leveled up to where we thought he would this season. Velocity up, strikeout rate up 10%, 2.6 expected ERA, 3.16 bot ERA, both of those down about half a run or more compared to last season. 57% ground ball rate. And Griffin Canning, his thing this year has also been the ground ball rate, 54%, which is career best. His slider, his changeup, both grading out as career best in terms of stuff plus. And he modified his delivery. He changed his attack angle, throwing from a different horizontal release point this year. And I think that in part has led to the increase in ground ball rate. I think there's slight variance in there, but I also think changing his attack angle has increased the ground ball rate. So two pitchers keeping the ball on the ground. If Canning can continue to roll a high ground ball rate, he can be a league average pitcher. He can outperform his projections. But I do think Sanchez still projects as a Cy Young caliber candidate going forward. So should be good starting pitching throughout this contest. Hopefully the bullpens do not implode this one late. So under 8, under 7.5 between the Mets and Phillies. Collin, you're going to take the first 5 money line for the Mets here. Tell me why you're going against Sanchez.
Yeah. First, real quick, you mentioned last night's game. I didn't have an angle on last night's game. That the under was obviously the play, but Rob Thompson is. I think Rob Thompson's generally a pretty good manager, but it's been driving me crazy how he needs to stop treating Aaron Nola like Zach Wheeler. Aaron Nola is no longer that caliber of a pitcher. You see him aggressively letting him go through the third time through the order. Starting the 7th yesterday was like one thing, but then he like allowed one. It should be one base runner pulled. He didn't do that. It ended up costing us extra runs because he allowed another base runner. Like he's way too aggressively trying to let this guy pitch through trouble when he's not quite the pitcher that he was in the past. So, it was a rough under loss for you last night. Like
he
you
has
mentioned,
drastic third time through the order splits too. They were literally talking about that on a broadcast the other day, that like Aaron Nola is the reason why you talk about third time through the order splits. The OPS goes from like 650 to 690 and then like 720 third time through. It's so obvious for Nola to see him get left in there. Bizarre.
Yeah. And they, Luis Acuna walks with one out, and that should be the hook. And then leave him in, or I'm sorry, he singled. They leave him in, and then he walks Beatty, and then Ruiz obviously comes in and gives up that Lindor home run. Anyway, yes, on to tonight's game. I am on the Mets here for the first 5 innings. I think plus 120 is a good number here. I see this as pretty close to a coin flip game between Canning and Sanchez, at least through the first 5 innings. About 51-49, probably in favor of the Phillies. As you mentioned, Sanchez has been incredible this year. I know you gave him out as kind of a Cy Young long shot before the season. And I have to say, wake up this morning, start doing my research, getting ready for this show, and I open the Action app and I see your opening pitch article, which people can access every single day in the Action app at actionnetwork.com. And the photo that our editors chose to go with it was a photo of Chris Sanchez. And I don't read your opening pitch before I do my research. I don't want to be swayed one way or the other by, your really sharp analysis and the data behind it. So I'm doing my research and I find myself on the Mets, and then I see Chris Sanchez on the hero image and I'm like, oh, great, I'm going against Sean today. So I'm glad to know that this was not specifically a Phillies bet is the reason that Sanchez was the main image, because again, I am on the Mets here in Canning. The one concern I have with Canning, like you mentioned, both guys are going to keep the ball on the ground quite a bit. The one concern I have with him is that he does get a little bit wild at times. He walks quite a few hitters. The Phillies offense is very patient. He's walked at least 2 batters in every single start so far this year. So if he does that in a key bad spot, it could spell trouble. But again, this is more so just a numbers play of, I think that we're kind of at the top of the market here on Chris Sanchez. Obviously, he's been phenomenal, but I think they've over-adjusted a little bit based on the projections of these 2 starting pitchers. So plus 120 is solid value for the Mets for the first 5. I would probably cut off my bets there at about plus 113. But again, the Mets as first 5 underdogs and closer to a coin flip matchup is pretty good value.
Yeah, no bet for the Phillies on me. As I said earlier, Mets or pass. I'm waiting for plus 120 though on the full game money line to get there. The Phillies bullpen number one in pitch modeling metrics this year, stuff plus, location plus, or stuff plus, pitching plus, bot ERA. But a lot of the guys have really struggled. Now they kind of have they have like a very clear A bullpen and a B bullpen, more so than other teams. It's a very obvious like A and B division. Ruiz, Hernandez, the B guys, Ross, the A guys, Kerkering, Alvarado, Strom. So there's a drastic difference in those two groups of relievers. The A guys, if Sanchez is going tonight, if they have a lead, you'll see the A bullpen tonight. But the B bullpen has really struggled, and I think that's skewed their overall stats. They rank closer to league average in terms of underlying metrics, their bullpen. When the A guys are in there, I still think they're elite and they're fine. It's been the B bullpen that's really struggled. Ruiz coming last night, giving up the 3-run homer. So just kind of keep that in mind. The Phillies, the underlying metrics, the pitch modeling metrics say this is still an elite group of relievers, but the results so far have been closer to league average. The Mets, I think top 2, top 3 right now in both underlying indicators. So pretty good bullpen battle here if both A bullpens are going to be going at it. Though Edwin Diaz is still in the doghouse for me at the moment. One weather-oriented over I'm on. Not a ton of analysis here, but the Rockies and Royals, so they've been the two worst offenses in MLB this season, 66 and 65 WRC plus respectively. But 78 degrees of first pitch here, wind blowing out 9 miles an hour to left field at Kauffman Stadium. I made this total closer to 8.9. Would bet the over 8.5 to about minus 108. Ryan Feltner, his stuff, velocity, etc., all down this season. So I think the Royals can score some runs. Chris Bubich, though, going the other direction, looks absolutely phenomenal. Rockies may struggle to get runs on the board. So maybe a Royals team total over. I haven't had much luck with the team totals. I've been better off playing the game totals. But over 8.5 up to about minus 108 would be a bet there for me. Got a number of other bets I'm keeping an eye on. Collin's got a number of bets he's actually fired upon. So I'm going to let him close. Well, I'm going to let him start as we wrap up this show talking about the A's and then some walk props for today. And then I'll wrap things up with 3 bets that I'm keeping an eye on that I may or may not fire upon later on in the day. So Collin, go ahead and take it away. Give us the rest of your bets that you're keeping an eye on today.
Yeah, I bet the Athletics last night. The line moved out of range by this morning. I have them first 5 at minus 135. I would bet them probably 139 or better on first 5, minus 128 or better on the full game. That's kind of just a numbers play, but and then you mentioned, my walks props have kind of been my thing this year. I'm up to 38 and 21 on walks props, up about 7 units on the year. I was excited to come onto this show today on a huge winning streak. I won 9 straight walk props over the weekend, and then had a 1-2 day yesterday. So maybe I'm back on the horse tonight with 4 walk props I like. The first one coming from that aforementioned Athletics game against the Rangers, and it's Patrick Corbin. It's not the bet you would expect me to be making. I'm actually on the under 1.5 walks on Patrick Corbin tonight, minus 140 against the Athletics. First of all, worth noting on these walk props, 2 primary books that offer these pitcher walk props, Bet365 and DraftKings. They're always about within 5 cents of each other. So if you have Bet365, Bet DraftKings, line shop between those 2 lines, or between those 2 books.
Caesars may have them as well sometimes.
Okay, yeah, Caesars has them. But yeah, they're all pretty much within line with each other. So depending on which sports books you have, obviously we recommend having as many as you can so that you can line shop and get the best line possible. But they're always, relatively within range. But Corbin's under today against the Athletics. The A's actually have the lowest walk rate against left-handed pitching in the league by a long shot. It's 3.9%, their walk rate against lefties. Granted, it's a really small sample size. They've had the 3rd fewest plate appearances against left-handed pitching so far this year. But only Houston and the Angels have collectively fewer plate appearances against left-handed pitching. And the funny thing about this is that in that sample size, they've actually crushed lefties. They have a 133 weighted runs created plus against lefties so far this year. Again, small sample size, but the only offenses that have been better against lefties so far this year are Toronto, the Yankees, and the Cubs. That's not the only reason to be betting on Corbin to stay out of the walk column today. He's also working in the zone more. Obviously, we're talking about small sample sizes with these pitchers here. Most of them only have 3 to 4 starts. But he's working more in the strike zone. He's throwing more pitches over the plate than he has in a decade. In 2015 was the last year his zone rate was above 50%. It's 51.6% right now. So Corbin working more in the zone combined with the athletics, not walking at all against left-handed pitching, has me on the under here. 1.5, again, minus 140 is what I got that in for Corbin against the Athletics. Couple more here. Dean Kramer against the Nationals. This is a much more heavily juiced prop, but I'm on his over 1.5 walks at minus 185. He's not walking that many this year, but he's also not missing that many bats. He's living in the zone and he's getting punished. He's been very disappointing this year. It's actually kind of high on his stuff entering the year. And, based on pitch modeling metrics, the stuff hasn't really diminished that much this year. He's just not locating it that well. And so far in this small sample size, those poor locations are winding up over the heart of the plate. I don't know if his strikeout numbers are going to regress to the mean today, but I do think his walk numbers are going to regress to the mean against the Nationals, who have a top 10 walk rate against right-handed pitching and a bottom 5 strikeout rate. So I'll go with his walks again. He's only walked 2 batters in his last 3 starts, and yet the over 1.5 is juiced to minus 185, and that's for a reason. I think that we see Kramer miss the strike zone a little bit more today. Another over I'm on 2 more overs. One is Zach Littell against the Diamondbacks. This is a plus money prop. I just mentioned these sports books are pretty much within line, but there is a significant edge, at least as of this recording, on over 1.5 walks. It's plus 128 at Bet365, and I believe it's plus 115 at DraftKings. So again, I like either. If you can get the better number, obviously you do it. He's walking guys. Littell, 4 starts. It's been very helter-skelter how in the zone he's living, but he's walking guys against teams that draw walks. Simple as that. He only walked 1 batter each against the Rockies and Angels. Those 2 teams are not patient teams. He walked 2 against the Rangers and 3 against the Red Sox, teams that draw walks. The Diamondbacks are a team that draws walks. They're a very patient team. They have the 4th highest walk rate against right-handed pitchers. Littell's a zone-based pitcher, but he's not inducing nearly as many whiffs this year as in the past. His swinging strike rate is down. I assume Arizona's a very analytically based team. I assume their advanced scouting is going to be all over that. I think Arizona does a fine job of laying off the pitches in the zone tonight. So again, Littell over 1.5 walks at plus 128. And the final bet, I'll keep this one quick. Jordan Hicks over 2.5 walks at plus 132. This is just basically about an auto bet on Jordan Hicks walkovers at this point. It's only hitting half of his starts, but in the last 2, it's hit fairly easily. He's throwing the ball in the strike zone a little bit more frequently this year, surprisingly, but nobody is swinging at his stuff when he misses. His career swinging strike rate outside of the strike zone is 24.3%. It was 25% last year. It's 20.6% so far this year. He's not fooling anyone. I don't know if the stuff is diminished. I didn't look quite that deep into the data, but I know that he's not fooling anyone. The Brewers have a top 10 walk rate against right-handed pitching. They're patient enough. Hicks is just all over the place. So again, over 2.5 walks. That's plus 132. That's another one where the books differ a little bit more than you would expect. But those 2 plus money props, Hicks and Littell, combined with the 2 very juiced ones of Corbin and Kramer, those are my 4 walk props today. Hopefully we can get back on the horse after following a 9-0 stretch with a 1-2 Monday.
3 totals I'm keeping an eye on, all unders that I haven't bet as of yet for Tuesday, but may shortly after this podcast need to dig back into my weather adjustments. 2 of these moved up as well from 8 to 8.5. Just want to make sure I'm not going too heavily against information I might have missed, but Guardians and Yankees under 8.5. This moved up from 8. I'm not excited to bet a Tanner Bybee under. His fastballs look flat. It's looked awful. He got lit up by the Orioles, just leaving it over the zone. And when he's missing high. And that's bad just because you're leaving fastballs high in the zone for the Yankees to hammer. Whereas Tyler Warren of the Yankees, when he's missing low. Everything is down in the dirt. He's going to walk guys, but when he's missing, he's probably not going to give up a 3-run homer as a result because the ball is just bouncing in the dirt. Everything's curves low in the zone. Everything from Bybee is fastballs high in the zone, and he's not getting them above the hands, and also he's throwing it in the low 90s. Like, it's just getting turned around and hammered. So good under umpire here in Vic Carapazza, and good under weather, 59 degrees, slight wind end. I just don't trust Tanner Bybee. So I've had a difficult time clicking the button on that one. I do make it around 7.8. It's a difficult click on Tanner Bybee under. The Twins and the White Sox under 8.5. I saw plus money at one book, minus 110 around the rest of the market. It is 67 degrees. The wind is blowing out at 6 to 8 miles an hour. Bailey Ober, a lot of his starts and his success in his starts come down to whether or not he gives up the home run. He's also only throwing in the low 90s, but has a lot of extension. He's 6'9". I believe his velocity was down this season, which is critical because when you're that big, but you're only throwing 91, 92, you need the extension and the perceived velocity to remain above 95 or whatever he's getting off of it in order to get hitters out. If it's coming down lower and hitters are able to square him up on those high fastballs, he's going to have a problem, but this is probably one of the easier matchups he's going to get in terms of an opponent against the White Sox offense that really can't hit. Not in the bottom two this year in terms of WRC+, but also still not hitting as they did not last year. I think they were 25, 26% below the major league average last year. It's roughly where they are this season. So White Sox, Twins under 8.5 maybe. And then Cubs and Dodgers under 8.5 as well. But this one also moved up from 8, 63 degrees, 6 mile an hour winds blowing out to left field. And that gives me pause with Shota Imanaga starting. Shota, I believe his last start at Wrigley just gave up like a pop fly home run with very similar wind, 6 miles an hour out to left field. And he just threw his hands up. He was like, how did that ball go out? And we discussed this since he came to the big leagues last year. This is a guy whose starts are going to be drastically influenced by wind in or wind out, just because he has such a high fly ball rate, and Wrigley Field influences the batted ball flight via wind more than any park, except for maybe now Steinbrenner Field. So something to keep an eye on, with the wind blowing out on Shota today, but still make this total around 8. Would consider betting the under 8.5 at about minus 108 to minus 110. That said, the Cubs bullpen, the Cubs in general have blown up so many unders this season, which makes this another particularly difficult click. So Yankees, Guardians under 8.5, Twins, White Sox under 8.5, Cubs, Dodgers under 8.5. 3 bets I haven't placed yet, all of which I'm going to dive deeper into after this show because none were in range last night. Otherwise, I would have considered firing on any of them. And with that, before we get out of here, let's toss it over to Grant Neiffer from Scores and Odds on the Stinger Tuesday for some home run bets on today's slate.
All right, thanks, guys. It's Stinger Tuesday today. You know what that means. 50% profit boost over on FanDuel. I got 3 picks today. Parlay them all together. I got it around 325 to 1. I think it's moved up to about 330 to 1. Let's just get right into it. First off, I got Kyle Tucker plus 450 over at FanDuel. Now, Tucker has been phenomenal this season. One of the best hitters in the league. The power has been great. He's got a career high barrel rate, career high hard contact rate. He's been fantastic. Got a ton of bombs already on the season. Matchup versus Dustin May is not a fantastic one, but it's not a bad one for lefty power, right around league average. So getting these odds at plus 450 in this spot is good here. I'm rolling with it. Next up, Jose Ramirez. Jose Ramirez, last year, one of the best home run hitters in the league. 39 home runs, off to a good start this season. Just got a dong yesterday, and we're getting him at plus 560. Weather over in Cleveland is a little bit below average, but that ballpark is above average for lefty power. Going back to last year, they made some changes. It's been good. Gets a matchup versus Will Warren. Will Warren is actually a plus matchup for lefties for power here. I'm really liking the odds at 560. I'm rolling with it. And lastly, Wyatt Langford. I got his odds at plus 480. It's moved all the way up to plus 500. That's great for you guys. Gives a little bit more juice to the parlay. And he has been good so far this season. Got a couple dingers in just 13 games. He gets a great spot here. Goes up against Beto, who has been a well below average matchup for power so far in his career. But he's due for some massive positive or negative regression, rather, for home runs. Home run to fly ball rate sitting right around 4% in his career. No way that's sustainable. That's going to go way up. Playing in a way worse ballpark this year over in Sacramento compared to over in Oakland. The ballpark is fantastic for power. Winds blowing out at 9 miles per hour in what should be one of the most receptive wind ballparks in the league. Temps around 75, so great hitting invite for Langford. I really like this. I have this closer to plus 400 here, so getting some massive value on it. You want more picks like these? Go check out me in the Action app. I'm out of here.
That'll do it for today's episode of Payoff Pitch. Thank you for tuning in. If you'd like to tell some of the bets that we discussed from today's episode, look for the quick slip links both in the podcast and the video descriptions. Don't forget to download the free award-winning Action Network app and leave us that 5-star rating and review wherever you listen to the podcast. Also, check out the Action Network Discord. There's a link in the episode description of this show. We'll be back on Friday for more MLB Best Bets. For Collin Whitchurch, I'm Sean Zerillo. Thank you for listening to Payoff Pitch, Action Network's MLB betting podcast. Cool with all your bets. We'll see you next time.